Have you ever promised yourself you'd pause the next time your child pushed your buttons, only to find yourself yelling, snapping, or shutting down before you even realized it happened? It's like one moment you think you're in control, and the next moment the reaction has taken over your whole body. And then comes the shame spiral. I should know better. Why can't I stop this? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And it's not because you're failing as a parent. It's because your nervous system is running the show, your survival system. In today's episode, I'm going to share the number one skill that can help you finally find that pause between the trigger and the reaction. This skill has been life-changing for me, for my clients, and for so many parents of high needs kids. Because when you can find that pause, you don't just stop reacting, you step into a more regulated, connected version of yourself. And that changes everything for you and your child. So let's begin. So for years, I heard the advice, just pause before you react. Just pause. And I wanted that so badly. I tried to pause, I tried to breathe, I tried to hold in my reactions, but my reaction still took over. Sometimes it felt like the reaction just came out of nowhere. I mean, like one moment I thought I was calm, and the next I was yelling or shutting down. Other times I thought I was pausing, but really I was just clamping down on the reaction, pressing it down with force inside. But then the pressure would build inside until it finally exploded. And then afterwards always came the shame spiral. Why can't I do better? Why do I keep losing it? What made the biggest difference was learning that I am not my reaction. Okay, that is my reaction is what takes over in the moments, right? That's the survival response. I am not that survival response. So that really helped me. But the most powerful skill that I've learned, okay, in helping me to separate me from my survival reaction is and help me to create that true pause is this skill called unblending. Okay, so let's first look at what it means to be blended. Okay, because when you're blended, what happens is that it feels like your reaction is you. Okay, the anger, the fear, the panic, the shame, they take over your whole nervous system and mind. In that state, it's nearly impossible to pause when you're fully blended with this reaction because this reaction has completely hijacked your body. So blending with that survival reaction, okay, it really leaves you with no space between the trigger and the reaction, no access to perspective, and then the shame afterward for knowing better but not doing better. I can't tell you how many moms say that to me, but I know better. How come I can't do better, right? There's always that shame when we cannot pause and respond instead of react, okay? But here's the truth to always remember first, that those reactions are not you. They are survival patterns and they don't define who you are at your core. So knowing that first is really key, okay? Now let's get into this number one skill that I feel like if you really want to be a regulated parent, the number one skill is to learn how to unblend. Okay, so we talked about what blending means. What does unblending mean? So unblending means that you are being with the reaction, okay, with it instead of taken over by it. So you're not blended with the reaction, you're actually separating who you are from that reaction and being with that reaction. And so this word unblending it and this concept comes from internal family systems therapy or IFS. And that's a model that I'm deeply trained in. I use it all the time in my daily life and with my clients. And in internal family systems or IFS, the belief is that we all have a true self. Okay. We are who we are at our core is a true self. And that true self holds these qualities of wise, compassionate, curious, calm. This true self has clarity, creativity. Our true self stays connected, and even our true self even has confidence. Okay, so when we can step into who we truly are, those are the qualities that naturally come forth in all of us. And then we have parts of us that carry survival reactions or beliefs or these protective strategies. Okay, so you have a true self and you have parts of you. And you can also think of it this way, okay? Instead of a parts approach, you can think of it from the perspective of your mind and body. Okay, you are not your mind and body. Your mind and body carry a survival system that cares only about keeping you safe in the way that it wants to make sure that you feel secure, safe, lovable, that you belong, and that you succeed. Okay, that's all your survival system cares about. And of course, when your child has this particular behavior, it threatens all of those meanings in your survival system. So your survival system is going to react. But you are not the survival system. So you can think, okay, I have this mind and body and the survival system, but I am not the mind and the body. I am not the survival system. I am the awareness of it. Okay. And then when you can step into that awareness that you are not the mind and body and the survival system, when you can step into that awareness, notice the reaction in your body without becoming it, you begin to unblend. So you are no longer the reaction itself. You are the one who is present with it. So when you unblend, you don't get rid of the part that is reacting, or you don't get rid of the reaction that's happening in your body. Okay. Instead, you step back into your true self and relate to that reaction with curiosity. Okay. So that alone creates space, which is the pause that you've been longing for. And that pause is where you actually end up having the choice to respond versus react. Okay. Now, mindfulness, it teaches us something similar, that we can become the watcher of our thoughts and sensations. So some of you may have meditation practices or mindfulness practices where you're familiar with this, that you become the watcher of, oh, there's the thought, oh, there's the sensation, oh, that's not me, right? And I also want to mention in the field of somatic experiencing, which is another kind of body-based trauma reprocessing therapy. Somatic experiencing extends this concept of unblending further as well. So it also has this in it to some degree. So it teaches us, somatic experiencing teaches us to stay with the body sensations or the reaction that's coming up, right? And then it has us connect to a resource, okay? Something that feels grounding or supportive or comforting, like noticing something in the present moment, right? Orienting, looking at something like the plants or the leaves, taking in something that feels comforting, or noticing the grounding, the feeling of ground, feeling your feet on the floor, the bum in the chair, or even like bringing in touch, feeling your hand on your heart and the soothing feeling of that. Okay. So somatic experiencing uses this process called pendulation to gently move back and forth between the activation, so the stress or the reaction, and then the support, okay, a resource, like a feeling of comfort and support that gives you this felt sense of safety. So this movement back and forth between the stressful sensation and the thing that's comforting, it keeps your nervous system from being overwhelmed because you're not drowning in the reaction. You're dipping in and out in small digestible doses, or what somatic experiencing calls titration. Okay. And so this active pendulation builds what trauma therapies call dual awareness. Okay, the ability to hold both the reaction and a felt sense of present safety at the same time. So this is a super important skill in order to be able to pause instead of react, is to hold this dual awareness. Okay, I can be with this, whatever is getting triggered inside of me, and feel safe at the same time. And this is, in this way, unblending and pendulation, this practice go hand in hand because both create space where you can be with the reaction without being consumed by it. Okay, so by unblending, you are creating a safe container for the reaction to exist with you but not consume you. Okay, so that is the key practice. Can you be with this reaction instead of being taken over by it? Can you unblend from it and feel who you truly are and be with that reaction? Okay, so create the safe container for that reaction, but not be consumed by it. Okay, so what we know from research and clinical practice, okay, science and clinical experience together help us understand why unblending and awareness practices are so powerful. So I think this is really important because it's a very simple but not easy practice, but it is, supported by some of the science out there, especially on mindfulness and this area of the brain called the insula. So this practice of mindfulness, which we use when we're unblending, it strengthens the insula, which is the brain area that helps you to notice body sensations or helps you develop what's called interoception, being able to sense the body. And a stronger insula means that you can catch stress reactions earlier and regulate them more efficiently. Okay, that's what you want to do. Instead of being blindsided by the reaction, you want to begin to notice those reactions earlier, and then intervene then before it gets too big. The other thing that science shows us is structural changes happen in the brain when you practice these kind of awareness practices. They've been shown to increase the thickness in the insula and also the prefrontal cortex, or the higher thinking brain, which helps to downgrade reactions, right? So these are areas tied to attention and decision making and emotional regulation. And having this kind of practice of being aware of the sensations and the reaction happening and unblending helps to strengthen those structures in your brain, making you better able to regulate. And then there's functional benefits as well. Like mindfulness also improves brain connectivity for emotional control, okay? And it reduces stress reactivity and builds resilience. So in IFS therapy, internal family systems has emerging research showing reduced depression, anxiety, and trauma symptoms alongside like greater self-compassion and regulation. And then, what we understand about dual awareness and somatic experiencing that use these practices, trauma therapy such as EMDR and mindfulness approaches, they highlight the importance of this dual awareness, right? Dual awareness, that you can have the awareness of both the reaction and the feeling of safety. So being able to notice activation while staying anchored in present safety. And this has been linked to reduced overwhelm and greater regulation. Okay, somatic experiencing builds the same capacity through their clinical practices called of pendulation, moving between activation and the resource and titrating the activation in small doses. Okay, um, so what we want to understand is that these practices of mindfulness and dual awareness and having the awareness of the reaction and not becoming the reaction itself and unblending, all of that is an incredibly important part of becoming a more regulated parent. Okay. Okay. So what happens in the nervous system when you unblend? So it's important to know that this isn't just psychological, it's biological. So when you unblend, the natural thing that comes forth is you start to feel this space within, and you start to feel this relief within. So what's happening is you're actually recruiting your ventral vagal system, the branch of the parasympathetic nervous system that's tied to safety, connection, and calm. Okay, and the space you create between trigger and response is actually regulation coming online. Okay, so unblending does that. And over time, practicing unblending also helps you build tolerance for staying with difficult sensations and emotions. And that is huge. We all need to develop more tolerance when we're being triggered so much. to stay with the difficult sensations and emotions that we're feeling inside without being overtaken by them. And when you can tolerate the reaction without fusing with it, then the qualities of your true self start to come forth naturally, like curiosity. You start to feel more curious, you feel more clarity, you feel more compassion, more perspective, and these naturally emerge. So, unblending is the bridge between the survival reactivity and regulated presence. Okay, so why does this matter for our parenting? Well, I think it's kind of obvious, but if you're parenting a high needs child, you already know how finely tuned their nervous system is. In fact, they have a very heightened, what's called neuroception, the nervous system's ability to detect cues of safety and danger. Well, for our kids, that's heightened. And their nervous system, this radar, that they have, they know if we are truly calm or if we are just suppressing a reaction. And so, we, as parents, we try to practice these mindset shifts in the moment, and we try to, you know, look at our child like, oh, they're having a hard time, not giving me a hard time. But that ends up falling flat because these body reactions, we become blended with these body reactions and the survival energy. And then your child feels that, okay? They can feel that. So unblending really changes the game because it helps you stay grounded during triggers because you can hold space for those triggers without them taking you over. And it allows you to embody ventral vagal safety, not just what I call pretend calm, right? Holding the reaction down, but recruiting ventral vagal behaviors and acting like you're calm for your child, but inside you're having all this activation and you're just clamping down on it. That's pretend calm. Okay, our children can read that. And unblending gives your child's nervous system a cue of true regulation that they can feel. Okay, and it models awareness and resilience for your child. So in other words, unblending isn't just for you, it's also for your child. It gives their nervous system a chance to unblend too through mirroring, right? Mirror neurons in their brain can see and feel what you're doing, and then it gives their system a chance to follow that as well. So let's talk about how to practice unblending. Okay, so think of what I'm going to talk about now. You can think of these practices as a progression. We're going to start with a more simple practice. And then as you build tolerance, you can layer in the deeper ones. And then over time, what these practices do is they strengthen the neural pathway back to safety and regulation. So the more you practice this, the more it will become like secondhand and more predictive for your brain to do when you are triggered. So the first step is to have awareness of the reaction and then become curious of it. So begin by noticing the reaction in your body. So it could be like you're triggered and you're feeling this tightness, this bracing, or the clenching in your jaw, or the heart racing, or this flood of angry thoughts or worry thoughts. Okay, so notice that first, become aware of it, and notice the sensations. Then say to yourself, like in order to start unblending, you can say this to yourself. Oh, this reaction is here. I am not this reaction. My body is having this reaction and I can be with it. And then step into the role of curious observer. Okay, what does this reaction feel like in my body? Where do I feel it in my body? What is it like to simply notice it? So notice how you are not this reaction. You are with it now, watching it as a curious observer of it. And what is that like to be with it and watch it? Okay, so often this simple act creates the softening, more space, and allows qualities of your true self, like curiosity and clarity, compassion, to start to naturally emerge. Okay, so the second practice that you can do is you can notice this reaction in your body and then externalize it with imagery. So it's like taking that reaction front in your body, imagining, if there's a shape to it, a color, a texture, or movement, and then moving it outside of your body in front of you. So this helps to create some distance. So you notice the reaction in your body and you describe the sensations of it. And then you notice, does it have a shape? Does it have a color? Does it have a texture? Does it have any movement to it? And then imagine gently pulling that image outside of you, placing it in front of you. Okay. And then from your true self, you observe it with curiosity again. What is it like to be with this reaction here in front of you? Okay. Here am I. Here is this reaction. And welcome it. You belong, and I can be here with you. Okay. So practicing tolerance means practicing welcoming it and saying that, really understanding that this reaction belongs here. It's here anyways, right? Maybe it can belong too. And that helps you to tolerate more, to be with it. Okay, sometimes resistance can come up to this. Like you can look at that reaction outside of you and you cannot like it, right? Or you could hate it. And so that's resistance to it. But again, that's not you. That's another survival part then that comes up that doesn't like that you're having that reaction, right? So notice that as a survival reaction too. Give it an image as well, and then place that outside of you, okay? And be with both, okay? So that's a little more, getting a little bit more advanced, but that's another practice you can try. And then the third practice is befriending the younger part of you. Okay. So when you're having a more vulnerable reaction, right? It feels really tender, like shame or grief or even fear. Okay. You can imagine it as a younger part of you, like the little child inside of you who once had to carry this. Because remember, all of our reactions, 90% of how we're reacting today really has to do with something that happened in the past, right? Only 10% has to do with what's happening today. So oftentimes it's a younger part of us. If you can think from a parts perspective, it's that inner child that's getting triggered. So you step into more of your adult true self, okay? The you who carries the compassion, the wisdom, the curiosity, and the comfort, right? And you speak to the younger part of you. I see you. I'm here with you. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. I'm here for you. Okay. And you speak kindly to it and you bring compassion to these deeper reactions. And that helps you to begin to unblend too, because your nervous system learns, it is bringing in safety and compassion towards this vulnerability inside. And that itself helps you to unblend and reduces the overwhelm that's happening inside because it's bringing in cues of safety. And then the fourth practice comes from somatic experiencing, and it's called pendulation. And it gives you this experience of dual awareness as well. So first you notice the activation in your body. So like the tightness, the bracing, the clenching, the increased heart rate, or maybe even heat that you're feeling. Okay, so you notice that and you be with it with curiosity. Then you shift to feeling a resource. So you feel your feet on the ground. So you're feeling grounding, support, right? You feel your feet on the ground, or you feel your bum in the chair, or you look around you and you orient to something comforting, okay? And you take in that feeling of comfort. It could be like a blanket. It could be like the light, the way the light comes in. It could be a plant that brings you comfort. So you look at that, you orient to something comforting, and you feel that comfort in your body. You can also bring in touch, soothing touch to help feel that comfort. And then you notice how that comfort feels in your body and you take that in and you feel the softening happening in your body and the feeling of that safety. And then you move back and forth. You move back and forth between the activation you're feeling in your body and then the comfort, the thing that brings you comfort. You notice that and you feel that in your body. Okay. And then you go back and forth. And this is called pendulation. It's like swinging between activation and ease and comfort. And it's also titration because you're doing it in small amounts. You're staying with the activation a little bit, and then you're going to the resource and you're feeling that comfort a little bit, and you're going back and forth. And then this helps you over time to also tolerate being with the activation. And it builds dual awareness, this ability to hold both the stress reaction and the sense of safety at once. Okay. And this prevents overwhelm and strengthens your nervous system's capacity to regulate. So, this is like one of the most important practices to develop in life because we're always going to be triggered. So, how can you help be with it and bring in cues of safety? So, those are the 4 practices. And then I just want to talk about, like, in daily life, how you can notice your different patterns and bring in this skill of unblending and build that muscle. So look at like everyday stress patterns that show up, like you're rushing, right? Maybe rushing to get your children to school or rushing through getting chores done in the house, or you feel irritation at small tasks, or you have worry or rumination come up. So just pause when you notice these little micro reactions, and then you can say hello to them to unblend from them. Oh, hello, worry. Oh, hello, rushing. You're here now. Oh, hello, tight chest. Oh, hello, anxiety, and you just say hello to it. And that itself can help you to unblend from it and start to notice that you are not this reaction. And, you can then take it a step further and welcome them with your ventral vagal energy. You belong too. You can be here and I can be here. We can both be here at the same time. Okay, so practicing with these smaller patterns can build tolerance and makes unblending more accessible in the heated moments. Okay, so practice outside of the heated moments, practice with little reactions, and then bring it into the stronger reactions in the heated moments. Okay, so unblending is not about perfection. It's not about never losing it again. It's about slowly strengthening the muscle of awareness. So you remember, you are not your survival system, you are the awareness behind it. As Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Okay, so that space is not just mental, it is ventral vagal regulation coming online, safety, connection, calm. And from that place, your child feels your presence and your nervous system also has room to choose. So the invitation is simple. The next time you notice a reaction, however small it is, pause and become aware of it first. Name it. Oh, here's the reaction. Be curious and practice unblending in the 5 ways that I had mentioned. Because each time you do, you're not only healing yourself, you're offering your child the gift of true safety and connection. And if this podcast resonated with you, I invite you to like it, comment, share with others. I'm sure other people could use this messaging too. Thank you.